Well, it's happened. P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Diddy, Sean Combs, whatever you know him as, he's finally been arrested. Now, I'm going to tell you guys why it doesn't really matter. This is all just one big Fed show because Diddy is a protected asset, clearly, just like Jeffrey Epstein was a protected asset before him. He's an agent, and he's working for a criminal government enterprise. Plus, have you guys heard of Alexis Lorenz? Well, you're about to because she is a young woman that is currently trending all over the internet after suffering a severe reaction to multiple vaccines which were administered to her at UCI Medical Center. Lastly, Greta Thunberg, how dare you? Well, guess what? She's in the news and it is not good. Probably for the first time ever, it's not good because this girl became the Hollywood it girl after she said, how dare you? After she looked like this in the corner and grimaced when Donald Trump walked by her. She's probably wondering, what did she do? What could she have possibly done to have turned everything upside down in her life? Because now the media hates her and you're not going to believe the reason why. Just kidding, you're totally going to believe the reason why. All that coming up on Candace. Did he do it? Did he do it? It's looking like he maybe did because he's just been arrested in New York. And let me tell you, the headline really here is baby oil. That's all anybody can think about. That really is the big takeaway because it's a lot of baby oil. In fact, I don't know whether people should be buying or selling that Johnson & Johnson stock because I'm telling you, this is trending. He's been arrested and the authorities collected some items from his home, confiscated some things from Diddy, namely 1,000 bottles of baby oil, plus some other lubricants, which were supplies that were used at his quote-unquote freak-offs. Now you're going, Candace, what is a freak-off? Do I want to know, Candace, what a freak-off is? No, you don't want to know what a freak-off is, but I'm going to tell you what it is anyways. Essentially, Diddy was throwing these parties, inviting a bunch of celebrities, unbeknownst to them, allegedly, by the way, I should say allegedly. He was recording them, supplying them with drugs, making them do things that they probably would not normally do unless they had been drugs. And then, of course, he had blackmail on these individuals. That's what many people are alleging. So the authorities swooped in, he's been investigated, and they found all of these supplies in addition to narcotics when they raided his homes in Miami and Los Angeles. Now, another headline that is taking off is just $46,000, because that was the cost, of just one of his freak-offs. Yeah, prosecutors say that in 2012, Diddy had to pay over $46,000 to cover damages to a penthouse room following a freak-off at a Manhattan hotel. So apparently he didn't care. He would just rent out the penthouse, and then he'd get people all drugged up. This is allegedly, and in the process ruined these rooms. And actually, one of the hotel managers said that things were soaked with oil. And that makes sense because there's a lot of baby oil involved in this particular case. Now, authorities are saying that Diddy arranged these freak-offs with the assistance of members and associates of his various enterprises, including employees of his business, and the hotel rooms where they were staged often sustained really significant damage. And Diddy would become violent with people if they did not agree to the freak-off. So if he's inviting you to the hotel room and he's like, we are going to freak off, and you're like, I'm actually not interested in freaking off, then he would get violent, and sometimes he would wield firearms, allegedly. Now, the U.S. attorney on this case, Damian Williams, had a press conference earlier and described more of the things that are being unsealed in this indictment. Take a listen.
Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair.
And I got to tell you, man, for Diddy, this must be feeling like some sort of whiplash, because just a year ago, almost to the day, Diddy had received the keys to the city. Yeah, Diddy had received the keys to New York City, I think by Mayor Eric Adams. And so he was just so well loved and so well adored. And then all of this transpired after Cat Williams, who's some sort of sage, some sort of prophet, I'm being tongue in cheek here, but he went on and said that in 2024, everybody was going to catch heat and that Diddy was going to be catching heat. And then boom, suddenly everybody was catching heat. Suddenly Cassie came out and she alleged that Diddy was violent and that he was involved in these sorts of freaky situations. And then he paid her off very quickly. And then you had Little Rod, his one-time producer, or producer that was working with him rather, who dropped a lawsuit that was just unbelievable. And what was most unbelievable about it was that the media stayed away from it. Like they were trying to contain this lawsuit. And it was very clear to anybody who read it, who read through it, that this was thorough. This was not somebody looking for a quick pay. Okay, this guy had documented evidence. He had proof of what he was asserting. And it was very clear that Diddy, and I should say allegedly, was some sort of a blackmail pimp, was controlling a blackmail ring. Essentially exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing in politics, Diddy was doing in Hollywood, which is fascinating. It's fascinating to consider that Hollywood could just be a blackmail ring. Now, if you're thinking that sounds crazy, I might remind you that on my book list, books that you must read, Hollywood Babylon, it's always been this way. Hollywood was never a clean town. It was always demented. It always invited bootleggers and gangsters. And under those bootleggers and gangsters, they controlled people who were actors and actresses and singers who had to do exactly what they said. And sometimes they killed those people. It made it look like accidents if they didn't do what they said. So Hollywood has always been a blackmail ring, but who sits on top of it? You see, something that strikes me as odd about this Diddy case is his demeanor. And his demeanor reminds me of Jeffrey Epstein's. Jeffrey Epstein always kind of had this smirk on his face. You know, everything was coming down and he seemed remarkably calm, always smiling. I guess you would be smiling if you were the person that had been collecting blackmail on people and knew that you had video footage of people, maybe even the people that were prosecuting you. You're Jeffrey Epstein, you're like, yeah, this is really cute that you think you're going to put me in prison when I've got videos of you doing some crazy things on my island. Diddy has that same air of pretension about him. And just 30 minutes before he got arrested, I'm going to show you this. It's unbelievable. Diddy's laughing on the side of the road. Take a look at this clip. So this was from TMZ. You can see he's just like dapping up the homies. Just dapping up the homies on the side of the road, laughing. Yeah, it's all good. I gotta go to prison real quick. Yeah, I'm about to get arrested. Yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you on Tuesday. Love you, my dude. That's what he's doing. Now, could you imagine any other regular person who knew that they were about to be charged with racketeering and all of these things? And to be clear, Diddy knew that he was about to be charged. In fact, he flew to New York to be charged. According to his lawyer, they knew this was coming. They didn't know the specific details, but they had an idea of what he was about to be arrested for. And they came to New York to embrace that arrest. Take a listen to his lawyer, Mark Magnefalo, I think I'm saying his last name correctly, speaking to the press about Diddy's spirits on this day of arrest.
He moved to New York, as I think some of you guys know. We brought him to New York about 2 weeks ago because we knew this day was going to come, and it's here.
Did you expect it to happen last night? Was that planned?
No, it's not planned. Certainly, it's not planned by us. I mean, he came here to surrender at a time agreeable to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and then they arrested him last night. I spent the evening with him. I was with him till about 1 o'clock. His spirits are good. He's confident. He is dealing with this head on, the way he's dealt with every challenge in his life, and he's not guilty. He's innocent of these charges. We know what the charges are going to be without seeing the indictment. It's going to be racketeering. It's going to be sex trafficking. It's going to be things along those lines. This is what we've been expecting since the searches in March. He, to his great credit, he voluntarily came to New York. Not a lot of defendants do that. He came to New York to basically engage the court system and start the case, and it'll start today.
Well, you heard it from attorney Marky Mark. Diddy's in good spirits. He knew this was coming, and he is planning to plead not guilty. He's going to fight these charges with all his might. Who could think he's guilty? I mean, yeah, I watched him with my own eyes beat the living hell out of Cassie Ventura on camera, but he said sorry for that. And so what if Little Rod has all of these pictures and all of this evidence, which definitely looks like Diddy's guilty of something? He's feeling pretty confident about this case. Again, what could make him feel so confident? Well, I think it might be that Diddy knows that he's the fall guy and that there are some other people who are going to have to protect him, unless they're going to fall too. So let me jog your memory about some other aspects of this case. I'm going to hand it off to Ian Carroll. You know, he's one of my favorite TikTokers who does these deep dive investigations. And he's just going to jog your memory for a minute about what exactly Diddy was being accused of. Take a listen.
Well, tonight, they arrested P. Diddy. News just broke that they took him into custody in New York City. So I figured now's as good a time as any to all over Sean again and remind everyone just how horrible this man is. So if you haven't read the court documents and done any of the other research on this guy, this producer he worked with named Lil Rod brought this lawsuit against him. Rodney Jones v. Sean Combs, alleging RICO allegation, which is like organized crime. And he alleged that a member of this RICO organization was none other than the CEO of Universal Music Group, Lucian Grange. Universal Music Group produced 1/3 of the top 100 songs last year, including Taylor Swift. Quote, while living and traveling with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones discovered that Combs had hidden cameras in every room of his homes. Mr. Jones believed that Mr. Combs had recordings of defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Haber, as well as other celebrities, music label executives, politicians, and athletes. Upon information and belief, these individuals were recorded without their knowledge and consent, and as in the case with the homosexual sex tape of Stevie J that Mr. Combs provided to Mr. Jones, Mr. Combs possesses compromising footage of every person that has attended his freak-off parties and his house parties. Upon information and belief, due to this treasure trove of evidence he has in his possession, Mr. Combs believes that he is above the law and is untouchable.
Well, he believes he's above the law and he believes that he is untouchable, according to Lil Rod. And he believes that because he has collected evidence of people at the tippity top, politicians, music execs, Lucian Grange, who runs Universal Music Group. That's a very powerful man. And if they're looking and they think that Diddy has secured this evidence of them involved in things that they wouldn't want the public to see, then they're going to make sure that Diddy does not get touched. Now, you could say, well, Candace, look at Epstein. If you're one of the people that believes that Epstein was killed, well, you know that he was remarkably confident, likely because he had all those tapes. But if you believe he was busted out of prison or you believe that he was murdered, the aspect that makes this a little bit different from Jeffrey Epstein is Jeffrey Epstein didn't have any family. He didn't have a wife. He didn't have any kids. He didn't have anybody that if he was killed, and I'm saying if, because obviously we're told he killed himself, but if he was killed, there would have been no one that suddenly released all of the documents or released all the footage that Jeffrey Epstein had collected. Jeffrey Epstein would have then effectively rendered useless when he was in a prison cell. For Diddy, it's not the same. Diddy has sons. Diddy has other people who I think would likely, if he was a smart gang member, he would have likely told them that if anything happens to me, this is what you release. And here is where it is, under lock and seal. And so they're going to play a very careful game. Now, it is my instinct that Diddy knew he was going to go do this. He knew that he was going to get indicted because there was too much public pressure, and that behind closed doors, the feds said to him that they were going to go through this case, but that he would be fine in the end, but they had to make it look like they were doing the right thing. Same thing they did with Jeffrey Epstein, because something that's really notable about this is that despite the fact that they unsealed the indictment, they won't tell us what the other names are, the other people in his businesses or the other executives that are named as well in this suit. They're keeping that a secret, just like what they did with the Epstein case. We still do not know who was on Jeffrey Epstein's client list. And so we're going to keep following this. But like I said, this seems to me like a limited hangout of sorts. Don't think that Diddy is actually going to get into trouble, because I think that based on the blackmail that he has collected on higher ups, well, they're going to have to tread extremely carefully. But of course, you know me, I'm nosy. We'll keep following this case. All right, guys, before we get into stories, I want to remind you of Goldco, because inflation right now is at an all-time high. If you think your money and your retirement savings are safe, it is time to reevaluate that thought. You need to consider diversifying your savings into a tangible asset that has stood the test of time. I am talking about gold, of course, from Goldco. You can head to CandaceLikesGold.com. They have an incredible team that will guide you every step of the way. Their experts will show you why Goldco is a top-rated precious metals company. Goldco is a great company, and they support this show. And for my listeners, you can get up to a 10% instant match in bonus silver on qualified orders. So whether you have an IRA or you're looking to transfer to a gold IRA, or you just want to buy precious metals you can physically hold on to, Goldco can help. Go to CandaceLikesGold.com. Again, that's CandaceLikesGold.com. Huge update, guys. Greta Thunberg, she's now hated by the media. Unbelievable. I do want to say this first and foremost. Greta Thunberg, no matter what you think about her, you got to admit that she's a fascinating person. She's a fascinating person because she has this remarkable ability to really do nothing at all, and somehow she makes headlines. Like, the nothing that she does makes her a star. Like, that is, I think, what a lot of lazy people aspire to. How can I do nothing and become a big deal? Greta has accomplished that. I mean, biggest example, of course, she skipped school, and then she said this at the United Nations and became a star. Take a listen.
This is all wrong. I should